start one, get about halfway through, you can't wait to finish it so you can start another one. So that's where we're at today. And I'm really excited about this painting. And it's a request. It's something, again, from all the cards and letters we look through them every week, and really every day, because they come in every day. And we'd love to hear from you to know what you're interested in. And of course, I'm from the Midwest, and I grew up in cowboy country, and I haven't done anything like this in quite some time. And so we're going to do this beautiful painting. Now, by the way, this is an acrylic painting, but for those of you that paint with the oils, you can use these same techniques. You just have a little different setup. You have to let them dry sometimes in between, but nonetheless, the techniques are almost identical. So those of you that are using either medium, remember you can do either one of those mediums in any of these things that we do, no matter what. But this is going to be called Cowboy Campfire. Now, what this is a little, at the end of the day, and those of you that haven't been around the Midwest or the cowboy thing, you know, if a cowboy was out riding fence, which means his job was to go out and ride the fence, check it to see if it's broken anywhere, carry a few little tools with him and fix it. They had these little line shacks, or if you were on a cattle drive, at the end of the day, you had to get the chuck wagon. You know, you had a cook, and you had people kind of following up the herd. And it's really fascinating. I haven't been on an actual cattle drive, but I've been around them. And over the years, I've traveled through the country. I always gravitate toward this kind of thing. And being from Oklahoma, it's a big heritage of cowboy life and lifestyle, which is kind of fading, but still there's pockets of it. Now, what we're going to do is I've got this 18 by 24 canvas. It's a stretch canvas that I've graded, as you can see. We're going to literally, folks, ad-lib this painting all the way through. And the reason I'm doing this, I want to show all of you how to use all the tools of the trade, so to speak, in terms of technical elements, composition, design, perspective, values, color, all the things that make a painting work from scratch. And what I've done is I've taken my book. Now, most of you know I have an extensive library. I'm just guessing probably one of the biggest, if not the biggest, reference library in the country. This is one of my books on cowboys. It says Cowboys. This is book number 58. I have over hundreds, about 150 of these books. And so what I did was I went through my book. I found all the cowboys that I wanted, and I picked them out. I've got them all right here. Now, keep in mind, see here, for instance, here's a campfire. Well, I'm going to use this kind of as a guide to see the campfire. I'm not going to paint that particular campfire, but something similar. So what I've done is I've gone through, I've looked at the cowboys, whether they came out of a magazine or a book or photos that I've taken on my own. And keep in mind, you don't ever want to copy something. You just get ideas from it. Now, on this one here is another one I kind of think this is pretty cool. These cowboys standing around, and, they got the horse tied up back there, and they're having a cup of coffee, and there's their little campfire. Well, I just use it to get ideas. But the reality is, I'm literally going to put together a painting from scratch using my own reference material. For instance, these right here, you'll notice these cowboys. These are pictures I took on a trip up to Williston, North Dakota, and I happened to be coming by this rodeo ground. They had a huge rodeo going. I had a little extra time, so I just whipped in there, and I asked some of the guys if I could take pictures of them. Well, it just started raining, and they all put on their slickers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put these cowboys, you can see, here's some of them right here. See the rain slickers? Real common piece of equipment that all cowboys carried and rolled up on the back of their horses. See, here's a cowboy standing there with his slicker on. And here's some more of them kind of riding on his horse. So what I'm going to do, and I've got a whole bunch of reference material. I love this one. I'm going to put this one in here. This guy's bent over, and he's working on his horse's hooves. I've got some black and white photographs here that were taken many, many years ago. Actually, these were given to me by a student of mine whose husband was also a Western artist, and I got some of his files before he passed away. But anyway, the thing is, it's going to be fun. It's not just about the cowboys. It's not just about that. It's about all the other things. Like it's going to be a cool, wet, rainy day, and they're trying to get this fire going. So it's called the Cowboy Campfire. It'll be a lot of fun, and this is how we're going to start it. Now, here's the reference material. I'm also going to have this old chuck wagon. I'm not going to use this exact one, but I'm going to use it as a guide. And I'm going to just have it sort of as a centerpiece back here in the background. And then I'm going to, all I've done is I've kind of created a little spot where it's going to go. See right there? This is sort of my, you might say, my focal area. And then I'll probably have the campfire over here. Okay, I'll just make up my own little campfire. I'll have a couple of cowboys with their hats, they're sitting by the fire, maybe sitting on a log or something. Have some silhouettes, some horses back here against the background. It's all going to be sort of fadey and misty. And the reason you can do this easily, because on TV, folks, I have to be honest with you, it's really hard to do extremely detailed, very complicated painting. We just don't have the time. But a painting like this, you can get some of these more complicated objects in here. There are going to be more silhouettes, beautiful atmosphere, cool gray background, showing you how to do the fog and the mist and the rain. You're going to love this. All right. So what we're going to do first, before we even worry about the sketch, if you'll notice behind this particular, so you see that cool greenish gray tint back in there? I like those tones. I have some other ones too, but we want to stick with those cool gray tones. So down here's our palette with our ink brush. Just put a little water down here. Of course, I'm back to my traditional dirty palette that most of you laugh at, but that's okay. And see, already I've got some nice mud here that's really important for this painting. I'm going to take my gesso, I'm going to work it in down here, get it nice and creamy. So you're working it in nicely. I'm going to take a little burnt umber and a little bit of turquoise. And see how that turquoise there? That's too turquoise, of course, but we want to start there. And you add a little purple to it. I said just a little, and I didn't mind my own rule. A little more turquoise, a little more umber, and we'll get it back down to an manageable tone. There we go. Now we're getting it. That's what we're doing for this background. See, it's still got a little green tint. All you're going to do now, folks, this is going to be a fun painting. It's a little, in fact, it is very impressionistic. You're going to like this. You're just going to start up here. You're just going to put it on. See, it's not much different than the background color. I'm not too worried about that. What I want to do is get it on, and I want you to put a lot of motion. See how I'm putting motion here? While this is still wet, that's when we're going to apply some of the other color. So you just take this, get it on, there. Now, while this background's still a little wet, notice the brush strokes. This time they're going up and down. We're going to start right away with the concept that the wind's kind of blowing. Maybe there's a little rain. Who knows? It could be a little snow or sleeting, misting a little bit. But while that's still wet, now you take little tabs of gesso, barely dip it, come down here, work it in a little bit, and come up here. And you see how you make those streaks? All right, what you do is you pull these streaks in. You don't blend it out completely, but you want to see the movements. Now, obviously, you don't want it to be a hard line anywhere, so kind of go in there and fill those lines out. But so you can see the movement. See the movement? So you're creating some contrast here. With just a little bit of this. And by the way, I want to show you another little thing. If you want to add a little more color, it's the time to do it. Say, for instance, you want to add a little bit of blue. You take the ultramarine. You can make a little bluer tint. Sometimes that works good in something like this. So you're not going to just stick with that dull gray. You're going to actually put a little color, but it's more about the movement, the slight angle, and learning how to blend your edges. Actually, I like that blue in there well enough that I'm going to go ahead and add a little more. Yeah, I like that sort of a bluish tint in there. Just kind of add a little bit more of a coolness to the painting, which we're after here. Okay, I like that spot right there. It looks good. I think I'm going to put a little bit right in there. And of course, you get a purple. Let's try a little purple on that. See what I'm saying? We're going to ad lib all the way through this painting. We're going to show you how to do a painting from scratch. Ad libbing as you go. Not that you haven't thought about it in advance. You kind of know where you're going, but you sort of plan it as you move. That's called impromptu painting. I do it all the time back in my studio. And sometimes you can get better results. And instead of you sit there and just work it out 100%. If you understand all the components of painting, like composition, values, all the things you hear me talk about all the time, you can start from scratch and do just about anything with a painting. It's fun. All right, now that that's done, along the base back there where we quote have, well, I guess you could call this your horizon. I'm just taking a piece of charcoal and just kind of playing that out. There, we want it to be a little darker, as though there's brush and bushes and underbrush, whatever it is. So now we're going to switch to our number 10 bristle brush. working in the same area. Take a little more of that turquoise, deep, a little more umber, a little purple, and you just deepen that color. See how it's a nice, almost a charcoal gray, but it's got color in it. It's not just gray, it's actually got color. Now at the base here, what I want you to do is just scumble and scrub and feather this in to where it creates this mottled effect. And you gently kind of feather it back in. And then I'll show what we're going to do here. Come over here. I want you guys to notice what I'm doing here. I'm doing this all very quick and loose, using the side of the brush, a lot of brush movement. And a lot of you are saying, oh, I'm not going to watch this program. He doesn't know he's lost it. But this is how this painting starts out. Now, while that's still wet, you go back to your egg brush. Paper towel here. Wipe some of the excess moisture out of it. And I want you to kind of blend it together, just gently. See how I'm blending it together? This gets rid of the hard edges, but it still gives you the movement. Right, like there's brush there that's covered with rain and mist and fog. And so you just want it darker at the base like this. This is called feather blending. Many years ago, folks, I did another painting, not like this one, but it was along the same line called Fire and Rain. Some of you probably saw that show. And everybody loves it so much, I keep getting requests for that. It's really a fun thing to paint when you do mist and rain and you create atmosphere in a painting. Now see, this lends itself to all kinds of shadowy figures and distant thing, maybe a dead tree back there that's really feathered out in the background. You know, it's really going to be cool. Create that depth of field, you know, that photographers use as their little tool for, creating out of focus things. All right, now while that's drying, we're going to come down and do our foreground. We can go back to the number 10, back here to your main body. We're going to just start back here. And notice what I'm doing here. I'm pulling down like this. Just take that charcoal gray and you work it up into that area. And you just kind of feather it. Now this is just going to be grass or dirt, brush, sagebrush, you know. They probably found a big old oak tree or something to build their little camp to get out of the rain as much as they can. Where I live in Oklahoma, my father always tells me the story of a man that worked for him in his business that worked on the 101 ranch, and he was he got to ride fence one time. Well, they just give you a horse, a pistol, a sack of food, and directions on how to mend the fence. And he said after the first day, he was so saddle sore and so lonely being out there on the prairie that he parked his horse, tied him up at the next line shack, put him in the crowd, gave him food and water, and hiked to the nearest road he could find and hitched right back home. It's a tough life, folks. It's really a tough life. I can't imagine how those cowboys survived. Now, see if you'll notice what we're doing here, and you're going to love this. I'm just kind of skimming here. I'm going to kind of level that out a little bit. This is a little high over here, so I'm going to bring this one up on this side just a touch. It's not critical, but because you're going to have so much going in here to break that line up. Okay, now, this is an area right in here where that part of the old chuck wagon is going to go. But just for the safety nets, and I call it that, it's probably a good idea to go ahead and just fill in the area. In case some of it shows through, or in our little impromptu thing today, we might change our mind and move it a little bit one way or the other. Then you got to go back and patch. So it's a good idea to go ahead and just kind of fill this in. So I think for the sake of safety and to give you good advice, let's just fill this area in here so that the background's covered. But you can already see it's getting a little atmosphere. Oh, this first lesson or two, as all of you know that have been watching me for the last 25 years, all these paintings start out rough, loose, and kind of goofy looking. I get cards and letters all the time, every single day from people. Man, I can't believe that turned into a painting. It started off so goofy looking. How did you get out of that? Well, see, painting is not like you think. If you're a brand new artist for the first time and you're watching the show and you think, man, I can do that, looks easy, and you get a photograph, you don't paint. Now, you remember this. Don't paint what you see. You paint what is artistically correct. Now, what is that? Well, once you learn all the concepts of, again, composition, design, perspective, values, color mixing, harmony, color complements, all those things. Then it's easy to take a photograph, break it down, and turn it into something. Until you learn those things, it's a little challenging. Well, that's why I love these lessons. All right, now see that nice atmosphere, a lot of movement, got some dark areas there, and we're going to keep coming forward using these same techniques. Touches of water, taking your gesso now, add touches of sienna, a little umber, even touches of orange if you want to. And now we start putting in some of the warmer colors. See the warmer tones? You can kind of go every direction. So this first lesson and the second one will just be building in underpainting, creating some soft, earthy tones to suggest the atmosphere. Dirt, brush, grass. And then we'll start building in the silhouettes. On about the third lesson, you'll start seeing your objects appear. And then on the fourth lesson, and maybe the fifth one if needed, you'll put your details in. We'll just have to see how it goes. But now what I'm doing, I'll put very gentle, subtle suggestions of these other colors. See these warmer tones? That'll give you the idea that they're dirt, sand, gravel, whatever it is. Now, notice I'm always sticking in these gray areas. So if you run out of gray, you just remix a little gray. Put it up here. A lot of brush strokes. I'm going every direction. And then after we get this in, then we'll add all the grasses, the sagebrush, a few rocks. We'll locate the sketch for the campfire. Possibly we'll have a couple of silhouettes of a couple of horses tied up to a tree or something. Can you guys see all this working? Just extremely exciting, I think. I guess only an artist can get excited about this kind of thing. Let me go all the way to the other side over here. Now see, I don't want to make it a solid color like that. So as I'm going, I always make sure that I pick up some gray, working with, I had a little blue, a little purple, a little turquoise. You just pick up some other colors. See how that changes that and gives it a little bit more interest, and gradually feather it up into your middle area back there. This is true fine art technique, Scott, from the technique of impressionistic. And the impressionists at the turn of the century really did all of us a favor in the art world. They didn't simplify being an artist. They just made us more aware that you can do a lot of things and create art. It looks really good, and leave it more to the imagination. And frankly, I think in some ways it's harder to do that, to convince a viewer that there's something there when it's not. And that's what we're going to attempt to do in this particular painting. You're going to know very well that's a campfire, and that's an old chuck wagon, those are cowboys, and that's a horse or whatever. But the challenge is to make it to where your viewer has to do most of the work. You just get them on the right road. I'm going to get this out of the way for a moment. I'm going to pick up a little hooker's green here. The purple. See, I'm sticking with all these earthy colors in here. As long as you have just enough white in there to kill it from being too, you might say, dark and harsh. We want it, the white gives it just a little bit of a, none of it will opaque it a little bit, but it just softens it. Now, as we get a little further towards the foreground here, we will start adding some darker values. And that's a general rule for a painting like this, that you would kind of darken your corners some. Kind of working this. And see, I want a lot of brush strokes. Now, this is another thing a lot of you do. You know the rule here, the 3 Ps, don't piddle, play, and putter. You'll work it to death because, see, if it becomes a solid mass of color, then you'll lose that fresh, spontaneous effect that you want it to have. But all paintings start out kind of like this, at least from this style of painting. If you're an illustrator, a decorative painter, you do all those kind of things. Sometimes there's different ways to get to this. Now, this little area that's left here, we're going to start from the bottom and work our way up, making it a little darker. So work down in the same area. Take your blue, your umber, a little turquoise, a little purple. Now, see, the colors are the same. It's just the intensity that we're going to change. So that's all it is. I'll start down here, see, like this. See how dark that is? It's not black, but it's a dark charcoal gray that's got a little color in it. And now you model it up into your this area. See, so it create a nice subtle value change from there to there. See, don't be afraid of the brush stroke. That adds to the dirt look, maybe some of the rocky effects that we're going to have here before it's over. Yeah, the cowboy life is a sort of it's a dying breed of people, but there's still some out there. And I'll tell you, it's a fascinating lifestyle. I really love hearing the stories from some of the old cowboys back home, and I've run into them fairly often, and their stories are incredible. Their appreciation for the land, appreciation for nature, appreciation for all the things that we have. We're so blessed, and it's just an amazing thing to look out across a huge ranch. I see our studio is backed up by kind of a big ranch area, lots of ranch land all around us, thousands and thousands of acres, and we're real close to what's called the tall grass prairie, which is a massive prairie where the buffalo roam free. You know, the government put hundreds of buffalo out there, and it overlaps from Oklahoma up into the Kansas area, thousands and thousands of acres of beautiful tall grass, and it's wonderful to go up there and study. Artists go there all the time. I recommend you do that too. All right, now we've got the whole thing, quote, underpainted. Look at all these great atmospheres, these wonderful areas that now we can go in and start building our painting. So I'm so glad we got this done. What I want to do now is start laying in a little bit of the sagebrush and the grasses, taking the same brush, come right back here, take a little of the purple, a little bit of the blue, a little bit of brown, and just kind of, and back to the turquoise. Working in nicely. You want this to be very creamy for water. Okay, here's the way this will work. Now take your brush and you flip it up like this. See, I'm going to flip it. So now what I'll do is I'll flip it up and we create little pockets of grasses. See the little bushes sticking up? Now, it's okay to make them a little darker in the foreground, but if we go back, you'll add a little white to the mixture, a little green in it if you want. That's the hooker's green there. A little lighten these just a hair. And we still, now this is where the lesson starts to really kick in right here. Notice how I'm feathering the bottom out. I want the tips to be a little smudgy. You've got to start thinking about the purpose of the painting. It's an atmosphere painting. It's got a lot of, it's going to have mud puddles and, you know, things like that. You want the grasses to be in there, but not overwhelming you. See the little smudges of grasses? And you can make the grasses fairly, you know, different colors too. I mean, you don't have to make them all the same tone either. And in this case, you don't have to be too careful about where you place them in terms of, well, they're going to get in the way of the chuck wagon, they're getting in the way of the cowboy. No, remember, here's my rule of painting, especially when you do smaller objects like this. Don't be afraid of that, because I like to, frankly, paint the painting as though it were just how it was. I mean, they didn't go up there and look for the spot where the grass had been manicured or someone took a weed eater. They just, well, here's a good spot under this tree. But there may have been grass and bushes and brush there. And so we're just putting it where it was, and then we put the objects there, and then it looks more natural. So don't try to groom your painting. That's another mistake so many people make. And I fight that all the time with especially new students. We try to groom our paintings, or we leave things out that are naturally there because we think it looks funny, or because we think it's too much work, or maybe it just fills up too much space. Well, obviously you want to be careful compositionally, but you know, you're going to have these grasses all through here. See, I like this little patch right in through here, and I like this little patch right there. All these little patches that we're leaving, and we'll brighten some of these up later, where the moonlight or whatever it might be is shining in on there. But remember, it's still just underpainting. Can't stress that enough, folks. Especially if you're tuning in for the first time, because a lot of you get high center on the fact, oh gosh, that looks terrible. But those of you that have been watching, like I said, now you know the rest of the story. because this will turn into a beautiful painting. Now this corner right here is important that we give some kind of an eye stopper, like a little bigger group. So I am going to make a little taller group. I'm going to put a little more turquoise in that, brown, get it a little soupier. I'm going to pull these grasses up a little higher. And of course we'll use our script brush to put the taller weeds and perhaps some of the dead, branches, little dried bushes. Not too long ago, a few weeks ago, Donna and I, my beautiful bride, Miss Donna, worked on a workshop tour out in West Texas, and tumbleweeds were they were blowing, hitting our van, and these huge tumbleweeds, they line up across the fence rows, and they almost block the road in some places because they get so piled up. It's amazing to go out there and see all this stuff. And that's all this is, just dried stuff that breaks off and rolls up in a little ball and tumbles across the road. And it's really amazing. But I like tumbleweeds. They're kind of fun. Okay, I'm pretty pleased with this now. Well, as usual, folks, we're about to run out of time, so I'm going to challenge you to do a couple of things. Number one, try to get all of your background in. Now, can you see the elements developing? It almost looks like a storm, and that's what we wanted, that sort of that stormy look. And one of the things you'll like about it is you've got now opportunities that you never had before. You don't have to be so precise with your subjects. I want to quickly show you something here. Well, we got about a minute. This is a painting I did of a western town, and I think I've showed you this before. I'm not sure, but this is the finished one. This is for a book cover for one of my clients that does novels. And I wanted you to see it. This painting started off just like that one, with a lot of modeling and underpainting. But see the cowboy and the horses, the darker tones. That's how we're going to block everything in real dark like this. And then we'll start putting the highlights in to create the form. You're going to love it, folks. I promise you. It's going to be an incredible painting to watch it go from its inception of just this modeled look to some beautiful atmosphere. Nice silhouettes of horses, a few cowboys with their slickers, the mud puddle. Stay tuned. You're going to love it. So thanks for joining me today. Hope you'll join us next time. Put a little more in this paint. So God bless you. Stay inspired. Keep painting. And I'll see you real soon. I hope another session of Paint Tips with Jerry Arnell, CRM School of Art.